Hello, Red Nail Energy listeners. This is Mikhail, and I am coming at you with a little solo episode. I feel like this structure of this episode kind of just wrote itself. Um, I had some ideas kind of pop into my mind, and I started finding myself exploring some concepts that I feel like have been really prevalent on social media and with maybe dating coaches, and also applicable just to every aspect of life, not only dating, but I do think that dating is kind of one aspect that we see this a lot. One main concept that we see a lot of is this kind of black cat energy versus golden retriever energy, trying to be a dream girl rather than a doormat. Anna Christina and Margarita Nazarenko are both incredible female empowerment leaders. I have learned so much from both of them. I love their ability as well to kind of play off of each other and recognize that there is room at the table for all of us. And so I never see competition between the two of them, even though they both are kind of trailblazers in their own right when it comes to feminine energy principles. And they have differing views at some point in time. Anna Christina is definitely a lot more abrasive, and she has such a funny kind of like no fucks given approach to things. One of her big principles is like make them suffer. So she's really polarizing in that way. Margarita is a wife and a mom, is in a little bit more like I'd say softer edges when it comes to the way that she describes her feminine energy principles. And yet both of them have principles that are very similar, very aligned with one another, even though they describe them differently. And I think that sometimes learning these principles can feel really overwhelming because as you start to put them into practice, it feels like you're trying to be someone you're not, or you're being inauthentic, or you're not really speaking your needs, or you are kind of trying to stifle the way that you really actually feel. And I've spent a lot of time exploring these concepts and then figuring out how to apply them to my life in a way that I'm actually being more of myself and not less of myself. So I'm really excited to kind of dive in and give you my 2 cents on it. And as always, take what you want, leave what you don't, meld it together with some of the other things that maybe you're exploring, and just recognize that there's room for all of this. And the most important thing is that you let it sit within your heart and soul and ask yourself as your primary counsel how you feel about it, how it resonates, how it sits, and then move forward accordingly. So the whole notion of this kind of like black cat versus golden retriever energy is that the black cat is mysterious. She comes and goes when she pleases. She's not needy. She's not necessarily like subservient or submissive. She has her own life and she does her own thing. And she loves the people in her life, but she only loves to love them when she wants to love them. She's not the person or the puppy waiting at the door every time someone comes in. And with that, what it kind of does is it leaves the people in her life, I'd say, one, wanting more, and two, wondering sometimes, like, what's her next move? What's she going to do? She's not the most predictable, constantly, again, panting at the window, watching for you to drive up. And so if sometimes you drive up into the driveway and she's kind of swishing her tail and looking out at you and she's excited you're home, and other times she's nowhere to be found, maybe she's in the back bedroom under the bed, not really caring whether you exist or not, it leaves you recognizing the fact that she's okay on her own. And I think for me, that's the biggest black cat concept, is that she is self-sufficient and she's not looking to other people to make her complete. There's a big difference between wanting people in your life that add value, enjoying partnership, enjoying friendship, being someone that loves others, and then being someone that is completely codependent, needs others, can't make a decision to save their life, has to seek counsel from all these other outside sources, and the person that is very sovereign within themselves first and foremost. For me, that's like the biggest black cat concept. And I think that sometimes it's missed because it's like, pretend you don't care, pretend sometimes that you are glad someone's there, and other times give them the cold shoulder. When in all reality, it's like, drop into yourself and do what feels the most organic and connected to yourself first before pointing all the arrows of the compass outward and wondering like what they want from you. I think if you are a little bit of an anxiously attached person, sometimes the behavior that you're exhibiting is actually not to meet the need that you really have within yourself. And instead, it's almost to try to control the behavior of those around you in order to get a predictable outcome. I'm going to explain that a little bit more. So sometimes I think that we wait at the door with the person's favorite meal or drink in hand. We show up at their work with all the things they could ever want. We do and do and do and do for them in hopes that it'll make it so they can't leave us, or they won't leave us, or they won't want to leave us. And what we don't recognize, especially if you're listening to this as either women or maybe somebody that is wanting to be in a little bit more of a feminine energy, I think that crosses gender constructs. It's great to practice being in feminine energy and masculine energy. There's room for them both within everyone. But I think that when we're in that space of receiving, it's much different than do for other people. And especially in like a male-female dynamic, if that's like a heteronormative relationship, and that's where, as a listener, you are, we all often miss that we think that the more we do for a man, the greater he's going to think we are. When in all reality, the more we do for a man, the greater he thinks he is. I'm going to repeat that. The more we do for a man, we think it is going to show them how wonderful we are. When in all reality, the more we do and sacrifice and show up for and, give ourselves on a silver platter, the more that man thinks he is worth and how great he thinks he is. The more we pour into ourselves and put ourselves on center stage, and the more that we invest within our own selves, our well-being, our wholeness, our independence, our hobbies, the things that light us up, the more that person in turn recognizes our own worth, especially in a male-female dynamic, and will recognize that we are somebody they want to invest in as well. I think that we accidentally self-sacrifice and end up almost abandoning ourselves in the interest of getting the other person to want to invest in us, and it backfires. And so in this concept of like black cat energy versus golden retriever energy, it's not so much as pretending you're someone you're not or showing up in a way that doesn't feel authentic, as much as it is coming back to a center and figuring out what you want and how you can show up for you first, and not just automatically put someone that has no business being on center stage in your life right at the forefront as that centerpiece. And it can be really overwhelming. Energetically, it can feel like so much pressure. Think about when you meet someone and they automatically just decide you're the greatest thing in the entire world. It can be such an ick and such a turnoff. And in comparison, when we meet someone and we've just decided, maybe we future tripped, they're amazing, they're our dream partner, all these things that really is kind of like trauma and attachment at play, because there's no way we could know that so quickly. We end up putting energetic pressure on them without even realizing it. And I think that we also end up being the one that is reaching, and the thing we're reaching for is always just barely out of reach. And we put a much greater importance on that thing then, because we're always reaching for it and we're always grasping for it. And it's always just like 1 inch out of our reach. And so we end up, there's a saying, rejection breeds obsession, that we need that thing. We need it to choose us. We need it to want us. We need it to be obsessed with us or to come back to us, almost sometimes just to prove we can. And it's way more deeper subconscious or even unconscious attachment at play than it even is our actual desire. We may be able to look at that thing and say, I objectively don't even want that person, that job, that friend, whatever it may be. And yet, because it doesn't want me, I need to get it. And that right there is the thing that we need to address deeper, that person, that job, that whatever it may be has nothing to do with it. We can cut that cord and release it and recognize that the deeper work that has to happen is in us making our lives and ourselves that centerpiece and letting everything else kind of be on the stages around it. And until something earns center stage, which I can tell you, your best friends that have been unwavering, or family members that have been unwavering, people in your life that have shown up when they didn't have to, that have proven that trust, all of those things deserve center stage. And we often fling them off the edge because they'll always be there and stick some dusty son, someone's man, some person that doesn't deserve to be there on that center stage, in hopes that by showing them the importance that they now have in our life, they'll do the same. And it ends up backfiring. It does the exact opposite. So I think that for me, really unpacking those concepts of black cat versus golden retriever and kind of imagining the energy around them, we can still be like, there are moments I'm a golden retriever. I love hard. I love my people, but I'm not going to exhibit that behavior towards someone that I don't actually know, that I'm actually just trying to maybe manipulate into choosing me or putting me somewhere within their life of importance. I think that we can even deeper unpack kind of the construct of that feminine versus masculine energy, in a sense that feminine is receiving and masculine is giving or doing. And if we want to practice being in our feminine energy, it can feel very, very uncomfortable as a previous people pleaser, as an overgiver, as a martyr, as somebody that has been codependent in the past, as somebody who has pointed every compass of their heart outward, and I'm not okay unless you are okay. That is martyr and codependency in the most pure, easy to understand form. I can't be okay unless all of these people in my life are also okay. And if they're not, it's a direct reflection on me somehow, and I better make it better. It's my responsibility. And not only that, but my worth is derived on my ability to make everyone else in my life okay. That's exhausting. That is distracting from your own shit that needs to actually be addressed, and from finding wholeness within yourself and knowing that I can be okay even if you're not okay. I can be okay even if we are not okay. That's a really hard one. When you are a perpetual people pleaser and have been codependent or are codependent, it can feel like I can't go to bed unless this thing is completely resolved. And instead, sometimes the best thing for something is space to breathe and room to just process and to be. And being able to say, like, I'm okay. We will eventually find resolve, but I'm able to move forward with my life and not put this extreme energetic pressure on top of you that's only going to make you want to run further and faster away, is such a beautiful blessing and a gift to every single relationship. I understand the concept of never go to bed mad, but I think there's a side of being able to table something and be somewhat unresolved and still have love for yourself and love for the other person. I think it's okay to say, I'm not in a great space to discuss this right now. I'd love to come back when I am clear-headed and a little bit more rested. I love you. I'm here for you. And let's talk about this tomorrow. That's a really loving and gentle and really incredible gift to be able to give, not only the person that you're speaking to by giving them clarity, but to yourself in saying, like, this is not an emergency. We can deal with this tomorrow. And I think that a lot of times it's difficult to do that when you have been somebody that maybe as a child, it felt like a lot of needs were put on you, or you did grow up being a people pleaser and wanting to make sure everyone around you was happy, and then internalizing that, in a lot of ways. So being in a place of reception and receiving means that when you meet someone in a dating situation, say, or when you start a new job, or when you make a new friend, everything that you do is not for that new thing. We are going to be in a really beautiful blend of feminine and masculine energy. We're always going to be doing in some capacity. The difference is in relationship, in jobs, in whatever it may be that is causing us to want to revert to those old ways, we instead choose to do for ourselves and receive from that new thing. And it might just be like an open two-way street where we're still doing, I mean, it's not like we just lay down like a starfish and we just expect this new thing in our life to just come like bathe us and get us ready and dress us and do every single thing for us. That's quite the opposite. Instead, our main focus of doing is still on ourselves, on the people in main stage, for our lives, our hobbies, our interests, our goals, our dreams, our whatever it may be. That's what we continue to do the most of. That's what our energy continues to go into. And we don't get this extreme imbalance that sometimes naturally happens when we're a little bit excited about something or our anxiety is triggered and it feels like, oh my gosh, I have to do and do and do and wrap my claws into this thing to make sure it doesn't get away. That has the opposite effect. So practicing feminine energy can feel really foreign, especially if in relationship, your pattern has been meet this new person and then do a song and dance and perform and make them fall in love with you. I think that oftentimes that can look like, I'll make you dinner. I will have dinner ready for you with the bottle of wine and the candles lit and everything is ready. And you come to the house and I'm showing you how good of a wife I could be. And I'm melding myself into your hobbies. And even though I don't really like sports, I'm going to secretly research the sports that you like and I'm going to learn everything about it. All of those things, end up really like seething desperation from our pores, even if we don't mean to. It can be felt. It's inorganic. It's something that is like, it's kind of cute to take interest in something that somebody enjoys, and maybe you like humor them and you watch the game with them. But you go, what does that mean? Who is that person? Why are they doing that? Why is that flag thrown out there? Whatever it may be, you give them an opportunity for that to still be their thing. And you just show interest by enjoying doing it with them, maybe once. Maybe you also go, I didn't really like that. That can still be your thing. I don't need to pretend I'm obsessed with it. And then a year down the road, we have this huge falling out because I'm sick of you watching the sport all the time. And you say, but from the beginning, you bought the t-shirt and came and watched it with me. Do you understand and look at that as a way of how some of these fractures start to happen over time? And maybe we pause one day and say, how did we get here? Well, it's because the very beginning of that relationship, or say in this new job, you pretend you like all of these things just to get that boss to tell you that you're doing a good job. You lie and say you know how to do something that you don't, and then you exhaust yourself trying to figure it out, when really you could have said, I'm not familiar with that. Are you able to show me? And then you actually learn from them in the way that they would like it done. And you show some type of humility in saying, like, I don't know everything. There's ways in which when you've had a performative past and it felt like you kind of did have to perform for love, that we automatically start doing it in all of these areas of our life without even realizing it. And then one day we wake up and we are resentful as fuck because we're doing all these things that we don't even want to be doing. But I'd invite you to pause and ask yourself, who asked you to do those things from the beginning? Who asked you to start doing their laundry and making all their meals and putting Ziploc bags with snacks with smiley faces and notes on it for every single time they leave the house, and washing their car because they're stressed, and doing all of these things for someone? And then one day waking up and saying, I feel a whole lot more like a mother than I do a lover. I am mothering this person and I don't like it. And now I'm in too deep because they expect it. And they have a wandering eye because they want that woman over there who isn't really even giving them the time of day, but is instead pouring all of her energy and her focus into herself. I think that all of these things come with the best of intentions, and that's why it can be really painful to realize and really painful to unprogram and unpattern, because we're doing it from a place of such deep, not only love for that person, or maybe the idea of love for that person, but a really, really deep desire to be loved. And I wrap you in my arms when I say that, because I relate and resonate and understand it so deeply. I am with you on this. I'm not talking at you. I'm sitting here crisscross on the ground talking with you. But until we are able to break some of these patterns and really put ourselves on center stage and not change everything immediately when we meet someone that holds our interest, or we start a new hobby, or we start a new job, and we pour everything into that and abandon ourselves and then have to spend all this time trying to find this balance again that could have remained if we just gave that new thing a sliver of the pie instead of the whole pie, and then spent all this time undoing what we had done. Or that thing, person, job, relationship doesn't work out because of this immense energetic pressure and self-abandonment and this big imbalance of giving and taking. And then we find ourselves broken on the floor with nothing to show for ourselves because the entire pie has been taken away. And I really want to prevent that from happening in my life or anyone listening. I feel as though there's not one thing in my life that if it was taken away, I would no longer exist, or I wouldn't know how to exist. And how many listeners have those things where maybe it's identifying as being a mom, maybe it's being a wife, maybe it's your career, maybe it's this one specific hobby that you love so much, you eat, sleep, and breathe it. If that thing was taken away and your whole identity went with it, I would really, really urge you to just balance the pie a little bit. You don't have to do away with that piece. You don't have to stop doing the thing, but it's so important to have other things in life that bring us joy and that balance us out. And then every single piece of the pie benefits because the whole weight of the pie is not dependent on one ingredient or one thing. And it actually enriches every area of our life in such beautiful ways that we wouldn't otherwise be able to experience if every single thing went to that one aspect. I think that a big theme for me this year is releasing and receiving and really embodying not overgiving and not overdoing, and then giving and doing and loving hard in the moments in which I am choosing to put my energy toward those things. It's amazing how much energy you have to give when you kind of find these leaks and these areas in which you're giving and doing, one, for people that didn't ask you to do it, or maybe they expect you to do it, but it is not your role. It is not your job. If you have a child, it is your job to keep them alive and give them their basic needs and do all of those things, of course. But outside of that, unless you're a caregiver or your job involves it or whatever, there are so many aspects in which we give, and we're just expected to do so, probably by ourselves first and foremost, but we would also have this big kind of like role loss if we stopped giving our energy in those ways. But I'd encourage you to like maybe just pause and find a couple. How can you free up a little bit of space? And then rather than immediately pouring that bucket of love onto something else or into something else, how can you give it to yourself? What habits and routines and hobbies and things can you do that enrich you and fill your cup and are something you've been saying you've wanted to do forever? Maybe it's even just like a morning gua sha skincare routine, but you're too busy. No, you're not. No, you're not. I promise you, there are ways in which you can more effectively manage your time to create space to do more for yourself. And that's the hard truth. You may be prioritizing the wrong things. You may be giving too much energy to things that are draining you and sucking the energy out of you. You may just be a creature of habit and you're going around like a zombie giving in all these ways that you've been giving for years, but that really, really could benefit from some inventory. So I think finding ways in which you can release and then in turn receive and then especially give to yourself. The biggest concept and the biggest takeaway here is that at any given time, you should always be on the main stage of your life. And when something piques your interest and is exciting to you and gets your heart fluttering and makes you hopeful, bask in that feeling and let it stay on side stage. Keep your habits. Don't start rearranging your entire schedule just in case this thing might happen within the day or the week. That right there is a surefire way to continue to accidentally put energetic pressure on something. It can be felt from other stratospheres. Think about people in your life that maybe in the past have shown like a romantic interest in you and been very, very persistent, very just jump at any chance for anything to do with you. Even if it's not a high frequency, you can feel that energetic pressure come through every time their name pops up, every time they message you. It feels exhausting. It feels like pressure. It feels like you want to avoid it because it is that overwhelming. When we let something take up immense real estate in our brain, we subconsciously place energetic pressure on it. And maybe it's slightly in our interactions. Maybe it's in the ways that we're responding. Maybe it's in the ways that we are not responding. Whatever it may be, it can be felt. And it's that rubber band effect. You know, you put two people in the middle and you have a rubber band around it. If one person pulls away, the other person flings forward. If the other person pulls away, often the other energetic flings forward. If both people take a step forward, the rubber band falls down. And now we have something to work with. We're not doing this push-pull dynamic. But like clockwork, think about it. The time that you have this maybe person that you're pining over, and then it's like, how do they always know when I've moved on? It's energetics. They no longer feel that pressure and they have enough time to go, I wonder what so-and-so's doing. And then they send you the like, how you been text or whatever, you know, it is truly clockwork. It always comes back around, and it's always in those moments when you finally do start to release your grasp and let things go, and let that just be a truth to you that you know that will happen. And then you get to decide, like, do I even want someone in my life that I have to play this game and be within this dynamic just to get them to step forward? I think that's a really, important thing to ask yourself. Do I want to be in this cat and mouse forever? Do I want to be with somebody secure enough that we can both take a step forward and let the rubber band fall and be on a team and work on things together and know that there's a mutual interest and that we are both showing up? And in that case, there is no requiring of one being a black cat and one being the golden retriever, but there is still a requirement of continuing to prioritize yourself. The moment you decide this other person is so much more important than you is the moment that that person goes, wow, I must be really important and they must not be that important. And it's the opposite message that we're actually trying to convey. And it feels, again, really foreign. But continuing to pour into ourselves and have interests and friends and hobbies and things only signals to the entire universe around us that we carry worth and we are of value. If you are finding that any new excitement, and I'm going to speak on dating, I think that a lot of people can resonate with that the minute something comes through that is exciting, you feel real estate in your brain taken up by that. I would encourage you to get some more hobbies. I would encourage you to find things you can do that allow you to be in flow. For me, when I'm in flow, I'm not thinking about my phone. I'm not thinking about social media. I'm not checking every 5 seconds to see if I've had a text come through. When I'm in flow, it's those things that allow me to connect and to be in my body and to feel some tie to those around me and maybe be in nature. There's so many things that allow you to really drop in and turn some of those arrows of the compass inward. And that can still be through co-regulation. It could be with a person. When I'm doing a podcast interview, or even right now by myself, this and being with somebody else doing an interview is one of the greatest states of flow for me. I love having a couple hours, maybe say prepping and then doing the interview and then getting some of the pre-editing type stuff that I need to get done afterward. A couple hours of my day where the last thing in my brain is anything to do with my phone or anyone else other than who I am there with at that exact moment. And it feels so nice. It feels so nice to use all of my brain for one thing, when so often we navigate the world with tiny little pieces of our brain and tabs open all over and nothing is given our full attention. And so I would encourage you to find things that let you give your full attention. There's certain workout classes or yoga or meditation is one of the hardest, but one of the best. When you can get into that state and then recognize I have this tool with me everywhere I go. And when I start getting in that noisy mind and I'm glancing over and checking my phone every second, hoping for a response or really just feeding that rat brain, I've got to do something to pull me out of that. And sometimes to break the habit, it's consistent and frequent throughout the entire day. It might be that when your brain starts to kind of wander in that way, you stand up and you do like 10 jump squats and then you sit back down and you start to like learn how to just immediately transition your brain back out of that, do something else to shake it up, and then sit back down and keep working. And don't give in to the rat brain. Don't give in to checking the phone and checking the text, and try to make it an hour, 2 hours, whatever it may be, to give yourself that time to be a freaking human and not a rat. Go for a walk. Join some type of a club that you've been wanting to join. Take a class that you've been wanting to take. Learn something. There's so many free resources for us, but again, there's this like crazy Netflix decision fatigue of I've got way too many options. And so instead I'm just going to scroll all of them, do nothing, and then feel bad about myself. Think about something that you want to learn or do more of. Buy a coloring book, get a puzzle, do something that uses an area of your brain that maybe you don't use all the time, and then challenge yourself while you're doing that to not scratch the itch of the rat brain. I think that when we do those types of things, even if we have been perpetually in that space of putting energetic pressure on things, it releases the pressure in those moments. It's kind of like when you've been maybe like calling in communication from someone and you're really like waiting to hear from it. You stare at your phone, you refresh, it never comes through. The minute that like the friend calls and you're on the phone and maybe you're talking about something else, or you go to the grocery store, or you go to the gym, or you do something where you take all of the energetic pressure off, what do you know? You stop thinking about it and the communication comes through because you've taken the pressure off of it. And that's something that we can get curious and kind of playful with and practice calling our energy back in. There's a big difference between calling our energy back in and pretending we don't care, but actually ruminating internally incessantly, or pretending we don't care to the person, but chatting about it constantly in the group chat, calling every single person, sending 700 voice notes. I can promise you, when you are ruminating about something and you are talking about it incessantly, that energy is felt. That pressure is felt. And it's really hard to break it. But when you practice that, when you practice giving your brain a break and giving those areas of your brain a break, even though it does feel distracting and maybe like a little bit of a strategy that you maybe wouldn't want to use forever, there is scientific research that playing Tetris immediately after a super traumatic event, say you like witness a car accident or you witness a death, or there's something that is like extremely traumatic, there's scientific research tied to decreased PTSD if Tetris is played immediately or, right after that event is witnessed. And so we can even do that. We can kind of retrain areas of our brain. Say you do have a game that is thought-provoking in some way and allows you to focus on just that. Even in those moments when you feel like you want to crawl out of your own skin and you're, ruminating over something, instead, get your brain to switch gears and practice that. And maybe, give yourself only a little bit of time, a few minutes on it. Don't just sit there and distract for 17 hours until the communication comes through. That's not the point. But shaking it up by like immediately shifting your brain and causing it to focus solely on something else doesn't allow the strengthening to occur of the neural pathway that is trying to rethink about that trauma over and over and over and over again. And cells that fire together wire together. So the more that you are firing that in your brain over and over and over again, the more strengthened that pathway is going to get. So in those times where we have been firing this pathway over and over and over, it's going to take some time to prune those wires out and get it so it's not lighting up every single time their name pops up or we think about them or, whatever. So I think that is a really important concept of the right type of distraction and retraining your brain in a way. And it's phenomenal. And like I said, science-backed, research-based, proven, and I think, a really great tool and strategy to use when you are kind of in this practice of stepping away from old patterns and creating new ones. At the end of the day, practice is going to make perfect. This is not something that happens automatically. In fact, more often than not, it's going to take a lot of reverting to old patterns, feeling a yucky feeling, and choosing differently the next time around. And that's what this whole human experience is about. And that's what life is about, and giving yourself the grace to not have to be perfect. But I think some of these concepts, like the ones I spoke about at the beginning, can feel really deflating because you maybe try it once or for a little bit of time, or maybe with a new person you're talking to, and it kind of seems like it's working, but then you get to a point where you either freak out and kind of like resort back to the old way of thinking and the old way of doing things, and it feels like this is way too much, and now I just backslid all the way down this hill I've been climbing up. When instead, I think the most important thing is to zoom out and understand how we can adopt and apply these concepts to our authentic selves, how we can get to know ourselves better and our patterns better so that we can choose differently, change outcomes, and become more of ourselves, not less of ourselves. Not, okay, every single time this person texts me, I'm going to set a timer and I'm not going to respond for 2 hours and 50 minutes or whatever. Instead, I have a life that is so enriched and full and busy that sometimes I get a message and I can respond right then. And other times I'm doing something and I'm in flow and I'm busy and I'm not playing a game, but I can't respond for an hour or 2 hours or whatever it may be. That's authentic. It is not authentic to play the game of like, I'm just going to pretend I'm busy. And I do think it's also one of those things of kind of coming up with your standard to hold you accountable, where even if you like someone so much early on, you don't hang out an hour before the plan. They don't text you and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm free right this exact second. And in that case, it might be a little bit of pretending like you're busy, just in a sense of turning down the plan. Margarita always says you could be bathing your hamster. It doesn't matter what you're doing. At the end of the day, it's just, and it's more of setting that standard. I really appreciate when plans are made in advance. I'd love to do something in the next few days. Let me know what works for you. Or, hey, tonight doesn't work for me. I'm tied up. I'm busy, whatever it may be. Would love to make plans in advance next time, though. That's still kind, loving, great, sayonara, see you later. And all you're doing is setting a standard, because the minute that you don't uphold that standard, they're going to know, okay, I can text her right before, or I can figure out, I can go through all my other options. And if they're all busy, I can reach out to this person and she'll come running. And we just don't want to start we don't want to start things off on that foot. If we apply it to a job, I think that setting those boundaries and having those standards of like, okay, this is the agreed upon time that I'm done, or whatever it may be. And obviously there are unique circumstances, but I'm not going to abandon myself and stay late and work all these extra hours that have been agreed upon and then resent it down the road and be like, hey, this isn't working. I'm working 60-hour weeks and this and this and this. Well, you chose to do that. Do you see what I'm saying? I think it's really important for us to be the ones to set the standards, and standards are going to hold us accountable. One of my favorite Peloton instructors, Tunde, always says, goals are just wishes. Standards hold you accountable. This is my standard. So sit down and figure out what your standard is. And it's going to be different for everyone, and that's okay. Your standard doesn't have to be my standard. But once you have that standard set, it gives you some parameters to exist within, and it also makes you be able to very lovingly set those boundaries of just, oh, hey, yeah, that doesn't work for me. Or, hey, do you want to hang out on Saturday? I'm going out with some buddies, but I'll text you when we're done, and maybe we can meet up for a drink after. And it's like, I'm not meeting up with you at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or whatever for the first time we're seeing each other, or maybe ever. And it's just like, oh, hey, yeah, late night doesn't work for me, but would love to make plans when you're free, when you don't have prior engagements. Sets a standard. If you never hear from them again, trash takes itself out every single time. Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm not going to fight for that. If my standard doesn't match yours, it's better to know now than to know later. And I think that's a lot of people's fear is, well, if I set this standard, or if I don't jump every time they want to hang out with me, What if they stop asking? Then that's not your man, sis. I just think that we can't be so worried about things not working out early on, because if it's not going to work out early on, it's not going to work out later either. And it's actually such a gift to know. Your highest self wants what's best for you. Your highest self is always accessible to you. Your highest self is within you. And our previous patternings and traumas and pasts and wiring often causes us to subconsciously or unconsciously just continue to repeat those patterns. But if you've listened to this and it's resonated with you, access that highest self. Go out into the world with the belief that all of the things that you desire also already desire you. How different would it be when you had interactions, even if it was like, say, a first date? I will be honest with you. I go into all of them and I'm like, I'm the prize. I'm great. I'm fun to be around. I'm confident. I'm funny. I'm successful. The date will be great because I am great. I know I can talk to anyone in the world. The key difference is I'm determining not like, are they great? Everyone's great in their own way. Are they great for me? And that's the most important thing. That's why I'm going out there. I'm not going out there doing a song and dance trying to get them to decide I'm great. If I go into it deciding I'm already great, it doesn't matter what they think. I know I'm great. So I get to decide, are they great for me? Any job, any opportunity that presents, friendships, anything you interact with, if you go into it already with like, well, yeah, of course that's going to like want me or think I'm great or think I'm funny or enjoy me or whatever, because I'm an enjoyable person. I'm great. I know I have a lot to offer. It changes the energy you bring, but it also takes the pressure off you having to perform and get some desired outcome from them. And instead, be your organic self. There's times like I'll sit back and in whatever circumstance I'm in, let the other person do a little bit of the work. See what happens when I'm quiet and I just allow and receive, and it'll tell you a ton. I can talk to a wall. So it's not a good gauge for me to go and fill the space and talk the whole time and drop jokes and enjoy myself and whatever, and then leave when at the end of the day, it's reciprocal. It's me creating silence and space and seeing what someone else does with it. Being curious about them, letting them ask questions, not just filling the void or filling the space. And that takes a lot of confidence because I'm comfortable with silence and discomfort and uncomfortable moments and knowing that's information. I don't have to just fill it all and make it great and make sure they leave going, that was the best date of my life. Because I want to make sure it's my best date of my life too. Or I at least have information to determine what I want to do next. So that's that. I'm going to leave you guys with that. Don't be so hard on yourself as you make some of these changes. I'd love to hear from you if any of this resonated with you, or if there's things you'd like to add or aspects in which you have found success within. We're all on this journey together. And I think at the end of the day, being able to drop into a space of reception and allowing is such a beautiful, yummy, ooey gooey, amazing space to be in. It feels so good. And it feels so good to see who and what stays, who and what shows up, who and what makes the effort. And it gives you so much more energy and time and availability and space to pour into the things that you want to, and to pour into yourself first and foremost. You are so, so worthy of pouring into yourself. As always, my beautiful listeners, you are seen and loved. You are never alone. I cannot wait for you to come join me on the Red Nail Energy community membership. And I think that's it. I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful day, and I will catch you on the next episode.